4th down and goal from the 9. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. The Bengals have the ball. They are running it back. Sam Hubbard.
Stanford Jennings is going to go all the way. When it comes down, the Bengals are champions.
Now the Bengals Super Bowl chances rest on his right foot. The kick is up. It is good.
Today, Bengal fans, here we gather, talking football back for year 5. We're covering all things Houday Nation. We're glad you joined us here tonight. Special guests, past and present players. You never know who you might see. One thing that's for sure, it's all things Bengals. And it all goes back to charity. We at Talking Football want to thank you for joining us for the show tonight. By the fans, for the fans, until the very end. It's Talking Football with Bengal Jim and friends. It's Talking Football with Bengal Jim and friends.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Talking Football with Bengal Jim and friends. And Tom, draft next week. It is that time of the year, man, and it's a very important draft, to say the least.
Wall-to-wall draft coverage from us, everybody else. You can't get away from it, and I think that's a great thing. But yeah, and it's critical a draft to define the Bengals in the coming years as I can ever remember. Every draft is important, but I don't remember one this important.
Yep, I'm with you. So tonight we got two special guests. We have Brian Bosarge from Deep Fried Draft. This will be his 4th or 5th year on with us about this time pre-draft. And Joe Danneman, everybody loves Joe from Fox 19. We'll be on here. We'll talk a little draft with Joe and their Fox 19 draft special coming up here in a week or so. But Tom, have you heard from James here recently? You know, I know he's been working hard, the floodwaters, and
yeah, absolutely. As you recall, last week James could not be on because he was stacking sandbags along the Covington riverfront, helping with the flood wall and so forth, getting it up. He would be here tonight, but being as civic-minded as James he is helping take that Covington flood wall down and also take the sandbags down. So we look forward 8 days from now because we will be on Monday of draft week. We will not be on Sunday night, Easter night. We will be on Monday. So we'll look forward to James being back in 8 days.
Yeah, and Jamie's still upset about the tariffs in Canada, so he's boycotting the show until the tariffs are removed, I think. So hopefully he did win a little money this week, though, if you saw that on his social media post.
I did see that.
Well, let's keep going here, guys. We got these guys for a limited amount of time, but Tom, go ahead and kick off our first guest for us, if you could. And again, as you're watching here, whether it be on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, make sure you pop in as many questions as you can. We'll do our best to get to several of those questions for you guys.
He is the leader of Bengals coverage from Fox 19. This past season, Fox 19 got the Bengals rights to all, preseason games that they're allowed to show, but also off-season coverage, and they really scored a touchdown with it. They've got a great team. Their coverage is fantastic, in-depth, fair, which is important in this town. So to talk about their draft coverage, we welcome in WXIX Fox 19's Joe Danneman.
Well, guys, It's funny. I was talking with Jim over text this week, and he was asking us about our upcoming Bengals NFL draft special. And it's funny because we're working on an open. And when I saw the open to your show, I was thinking to myself, can we just take that open and use it for our draft special? That open is outstanding.
You can have it. You can have it free of charge. Yeah, the Bengal boys did that for us, Joe. So they're good at that stuff. So.
Yeah, that was well done.
So Tom, go ahead and kick us off here with Joe, man. So we want to talk a little NFL draft, Bengals draft specifically, and we'll talk about the draft special you guys have coming up as well.
Well, before we get into the insides of the draft and pick 17 and thereon, Joe, tell us what's Fox 19 going to be doing special for draft coverage this year?
Okay, so we have a lot going on, and this really kicks off what we like to think is our Bengals partnership season. You know, it goes all the way from the off season into training camp and then into the regular season. So we have a few things planned for our draft coverage. We just debuted a couple of weeks ago a new Sunday night show, 11:30 to midnight. We're calling it, ironically, Cincinnati's sports show. But guys like us who have grown up and been around Cincinnati for a long time, we've known that Sunday night half hour of 11:30 to midnight has always been for local sports coverage and a place for us to really showcase not just all the stories we're doing, the highlights, that kind of thing, but some good discussion points. So we debuted that a couple of weeks ago. So next Sunday, we're planning on having some of the big name writers who cover the Cincinnati Bengals on to talk about a draft preview. That'll be next Sunday. And then the 27th, that'll be our big NFL draft special when we have all the interviews with the first round pick, the second round pick, the third round pick, and the full coverage from the entire weekend that was. I enjoy that show so much because that's our first chance to really sit down and have an extended conversation with the Bengals' first and second round draft picks and get to know these guys a little bit better, because everybody gets excited about the player. That's the day you really get to learn more about the person that the Bengals are bringing in to join this locker room. And then also draft night, we will be live at the stadium the second the Bengals make their pick. We are cutting into programming if it's not 10 o'clock yet, and we'll show you everything Zach Taylor, the offensive or defensive coordinator, depending on what they pick, has to say about that draft pick. So we're talking the next 2 Sundays and then draft night as well, at least opening round. We are full go on Bengals draft here on Fox 19.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. So, Joe, let's talk about the draft a little bit. Now, they say the roster is as it is today, man. I mean, we got holes to fill, right? I think we're going to be a pretty special offensive unit, right, with the skilled position players and the quarterback and everything else we got there. But kind of talking, just give us your thoughts on which direction you think the Bengals go here round one.
Well, it's interesting because Tom was talking about this draft and how important it is for this team and the future of this organization. I labeled this offseason as the most important that I can remember in recent Bengals history. Now, they did right by locking up T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Still in a bit of limbo, right, with what's going on with Trey Hendrickson. I still think he'll be a Cincinnati Bengal next year. The question is just what will his contract be? Will it be playing out the current deal? Will he get an extension? We'll find that out here in the coming months. But now it leads to the draft and what the Bengals have to do. And I've always been a draft the best player available kind of person. I'm just curious if the Bengals have kind of backed themselves into a corner where they have to draft for need at this point. And we know what those needs are, right? The needs are offensive linemen. The needs are guys who can sack the quarterback. The needs are linebacker and safety. So I would be pretty stunned if the Bengals stepped out of those 2 positions. When I say 2 positions, I say offensive line or maybe defensive end. I think that's where they have to zero in on their first and second round picks. And look, in 2025, we all know that offensive guard is not a premium position, and the Bengals typically don't use high round draft picks on non-premium positions. But doesn't it feel like guard is now a premium position for the Bengals to address at this point? So I think what the Bengals will likely do, whether it's first round or second round, they're going to find a guy that can play guard, and then when the time comes, can also be versatile enough to move out to tackle. So it might be a tackle they draft that they can then move inside. And you look at what the Reds are doing, and the Reds drafted all these shortstops year after year. What are they going to do with all these shortstops? You draft guys who are versatile enough to play other positions. So that's what I think the Bengals might look at here in the first or second round when it comes to addressing the offensive line, a guy that's going to be versatile enough to play multiple positions, because it's hard to just pigeonhole a guy as a guard anymore in 2025. So I think it's fascinating. I'm very curious to see what the Bengals are going to do with their first 2 or 3 picks, because they have holes, but a lot of those holes don't always fit what we describe as premium positions when drafting in first and second round.
Joe, you're down there a lot. And I think something that really hasn't been talked about a whole lot is we've got a new defensive coordinator who initially everybody kind of went, okay, yeah, and he was here, but everything we're hearing is, and I just read this yesterday, they're creating not just a new defense for the Cincinnati Bengals, they're creating a new defense, period. The base defense will return to the old 43, the more traditional 43. So, and I know with that, no matter what kind of defense they're in, they've got to get more athletic and faster on the defensive side of the ball. And talking to the coaches and the guys, are they fired up about this new defense?
Yes. And I think it's important. The point you make, too, is you go back to what we said about Trey Hendrickson and having this offseason and then making sure he's here for training camp. Because if he's one of your centerpieces of defense and you're installing something that's going to be as big of a change as they're doing right now, you want those kinds of guys around. And even Zach Taylor talked about it when they made the transition away from Lou Anarumo to Al Golden, the importance of getting off to a faster start. And Al Golden, when he was introduced and he talked to us, he mentioned how important it was to be ready in the offseason. So then when you get to training camp, it's not trying to play catch up to get ready for week 1 of the season. And we know this team has started slow. So that's why I think it's very important for this team to figure out what they're going to do, not only with Trey Hendrickson, but what's the future of Jermaine Pratt as well, because he was the guy that requested a trade and wanted out of Cincinnati, and he's kind of in limbo as well here as we get towards the draft. And then the other point to make there, too, is will the Bengals now start drafting guys towards an Al Golden system? So I'm going to throw out a name here. I'm going to call a shot. I'm going to be surprised if the Bengals get out of the first 2 days of the draft and they don't draft the safety from Notre Dame. I believe his last name is Watts. I believe his first name is Xavier Watts. Huge difference maker, an athletic guy, like you said, Tom, a guy who can get the football, who can create havoc and create turnovers. I think that's someone the Bengals will draft. I will be surprised. Again, I know it's not a premium position in 2025, but Al Golden knows him better than anybody else because he coached him last year and took him all the way to the national championship game. So that's a guy I would look out for as fitting that system here for Al Golden.
Tom, we got some breaking news from Joe today. See? Breaking news.
Calling shots.
Nothing better than that. Nothing better than that. So, but Joe, I mean, everybody seems excited about the new scheme, the ability to get off quick. You know, so many times you get a new coordinator and something goes wrong those first couple of weeks. Well, they're getting ready to the new system. You know, they're still getting used to the calls and so forth. Not getting a sense of that. It's go now, win now, game 1.
That's right. And we'll get our first chance to talk to the players, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, Monday of draft week. They're back in town for off-season workouts. And that's when we'll get our first chance to really talk to a lot of these guys about the changes, because the players that we've been able to talk to so far in the offseason, they obviously had T and Jamar for the big press conference. They had some of the new guys they brought in that they signed in free agency. But some of the players who were here last year and are coming back here last year, so many young guys on this defense that we're going to get a chance to talk to about this big change on defense with Al Golden moving forward. I'm very curious to hear their opinion to answer the kind of questions that you're asking right now, because we have the same questions we want to ask these guys as they get back in town to start off-season workouts here in the coming days.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
No, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
You know, Joe, some of the guys last year, I think part of the problem last year was we had guys we were counting on as fans, and certainly the coaching staff were too, that didn't play like we were accustomed to see them playing or we anticipated them playing. There were some guys that regressed. I think that's part of the reason there was a change on defense. But whether it was coaching or not, are you getting a sense from what you heard, guys going to come in completely in shape? Are guys going to come in, hungry this year? Because that may have been a problem or two with some very critical players.
You would think, right, that they would get that message that the Bengals are making changes up top, that everybody is under the microscope now to be ready to play. And again, I go back to what Al Golden said and what Zach Taylor said, that the emphasis of this offseason was to have this team better prepared to win in week 1, because we all look back at week 1 last year and say, how did they lose to the Patriots? And if they would have beaten the Patriots, they would have had their shot at the playoffs. And this team can't just continue to punt on the first month of the season. That's obviously a point of emphasis. And when Al Golden got the job here, he said his point of emphasis was this time of year, off-season workouts, then getting towards OTAs, mini camps, and having this team ready come training camp. And you talk about the defense and this team getting better and being better prepared. Certainly young guys who got their chances last year to get some snaps and show improvement. but now it's a new coordinator, right? And the big question I had was about development. That was the big question I had was, why aren't these guys developing like they should be? Guys that they drafted with high round draft picks. Certainly we're going to put the bullseye on Myles Murphy in that case, a first round draft pick who just hasn't performed like we all thought he was. What's the disconnect of drafting these guys, evaluating these guys, and then not developing them to play at the level that's expected here in Cincinnati? And again, I think that might go back towards Al Golden, because what's the name of the game in college football? You recruit guys, you develop guys, and then you win with those players. A little different now, right? In the NIL world and the transfer portal world, where you can just pluck guys who might have a little more seasoning. But certainly that's the name of the game in college. And that's what Al Golden did at Notre Dame, was develop that team into a championship level defense. So certainly him getting his hands on these younger players, and whatever the problem was, why they weren't developing, maybe he can be the answer, because it wasn't happening under the last defensive coordinator here in Cincinnati. And maybe Al Golden not only can scheme them up, but can also develop these guys a little bit better than what was happening under the previous defensive coordinator.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Jimmy, we hadn't planned on this, and I know Joe's time is limited and we appreciate it, but can you go ahead and punch up Brian and get Brian on here with him? Let's those two guys meet real quick. I'll introduce him afterwards. There's Deep Fried. Brian, you there?
Yeah. Hey guys.
He didn't know we were
Danneman
doing this. So.
Brian is from deep in the South. Yeah, we caught him off guard. Brian is from deep in the South, but not just a Bengals fan, but runs one of the elite, credible, very credible draft, NFL draft countdown. He helps run that, and his analysis is uncanny.
So let me ask Brian a question then, if I can. Let me hop in here with a question.
Please.
Okay, Brian. So I called my shot here on Xavier Watts. Bengals drafting a safety that Al Golden worked with last year at Notre Dame. Going through your draft, how high would the Bengals have to pick him if that's someone they were going to target?
17.
So he's not going to last in the second round.
I don't think he does. I think he's gone before they come on the board at 49. I think they would like to have him, but them trading up in the second round to get him is probably not going to happen based off prior history that we know. So I would say that I don't think he's an option for them at 49. I think if they view safety as a top priority in this draft class and they're going to take one at 17, it'll be either Malachi Starks from Georgia or Nick Emmanwori from South Carolina, depending on how they view either of those players.
So the pipe dream, and I don't mean to take this over, guys. This is the last question I'll ask. I'll let you guys get back to running your podcast. So the pipe dream of drafting Watts in the second round is out. This idea of premium positions, right? And the Bengals using their high draft capital on premium positions. We all know that guard is not looked at across the league as a premium position. But in this case, should it be considered a premium for the Bengals, even if they draft a tackle that they can move inside to play guard? Would you label that as a premium for this roster in Cincinnati?
I would, and I think the other three people in this conversation would, but after the Super Bowl, when Aaron Donald basically just bulldozed our chances to win the Super Bowl there, and the Bengals in 3 years after that have not labeled it as a premium position, I don't think that they've changed attitudes on that. If they had, they would have replaced everybody by now on the inside, and they haven't. So I just don't think as an organization they prioritize the guard position like, I'm just going to say it out loud, every other team that wins Super Bowls in the league does.
Well, damn it.
Yeah, I'm fighting back tears, but that's okay.
I know.
How high would you guys be comfortable with a running back?
Oh,
I think it's day 3. I think it's a day 3 pick, unless somebody in the second round they have ranked so high on their draft board they just simply cannot pass them up.
I mean,
I think
would either of the Ohio State guys in the second round, A, Brian, be available, or B, be good enough for the Bengals again to use some of their high draft capital at the position that's not a need? It would be a luxury at that point.
I have two schools of thoughts on this. One, I think both the Ohio State running backs could be on the board at 49. Henderson less likely so than Judkins. I think Judkins might actually be available to the Bengals in the third round. But this may be one of the deepest running back classes we've seen. Like, there are schools of thought out there that we may see the modern day record for number of running backs drafted go down in this year's draft, where we may see 30, 32 running backs taken. I think day 3 is where they look to add a back, and I think that's the only reason Zach Moss hasn't been released yet, is because they're waiting to see what kind of capital they spend on the back. I think if they do wait to day 3, they're not looking for somebody to take over for Chase Brown as much as they're going to look for a bigger complement to him, and let Samaje Perine on his deal kind of ease that transition a little bit with it. That's why I said I think day 3, guys like Damian Martinez from Miami, Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State, guys of that nature are who you might be targeting 5th, 6th round.
Interesting. Anything else, Joe? Keep going, brother. This is great.
All right, last one more. Okay, local guy, Caleb Johnson, a guy that went to Hamilton, another running back that I've kind of put in my mental queue a little bit. Where's he being slotted, and is he a possibility? Is he going day 2, or is he a day 3 guy?
He's a day 2 guy. He's would be a target at 49 if that was where you're spinning. You're looking at running back. I think him and Travion Henderson are going to have similar grades. It's just going to be this is going to be one of those drafts where we're going to see a lot of guys going ahead of other guys we think it should be reversed, because I think there's going to be a lot of very similar grades between player 20 and player 80 on these teams' boards, and we're going to see a lot of team specific fits and stuff like that determine how these players come off the board. And I think that's how you're going to see a guy like Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, and some of these other running backs not named Ashton Genty, and maybe a Marion Hampton from North Carolina.
One more philosophical question, and Jim, Tom, and Brian, you guys, and then I'll get out of here and stop taking over.
No, this is great.
But this is what I've always wondered, okay, especially with the Bengals defensive end position. And we all know the premium positions, right, in the NFL. You got to have a quarterback. You got to have guys who protect the quarterback, catch the ball from the quarterback, and then rush the quarterback. The Bengals are really, really good on 2 of those things. But I've always had the philosophy, if you have a high round draft pick and you don't have a quarterback, you keep taking your swing until you find your guy, right? And that's what teams are going to do at the top of the draft. The Bengals have their quarterback. They've taken swings on guys who can sack the quarterback but have not hit. Would you just take another swing this year and pick your guy, whether it's Pierce from Tennessee, whether it's Nolan, who's more of an interior guy, if I'm not mistaken. But you have to keep taking the swing until you find a guy that hits that can get to the quarterback. That's just my philosophy on what the Bengals have to do here in the first round.
I agree. On one caveat, that we're taking the right swings, or we're seeing the right pitches, because years past the Bengals have had a mold of defensive end that they draft, and they don't vary from that mold. Now, is Al Golden going to be able to influence a different maybe philosophy here? That is something we won't know until draft night. So I can only go on what I could say. And there are a lot of edge guys that are in this class that I think maybe not on the board at 17, but guys that would normally not fit the Bengals stereotypical defensive end, guys like Mike Green from Marshall, Jalen Walker from Georgia. And they passed on guys like Nolan Smith out of Georgia a couple of years ago for Miles Murphy, and Nolan Smith's been pretty productive there for the Eagles, or Miles Murphy has not. But Miles Murphy fit that size profile that the Bengals typically have. So if we're not going to get out of that, I really don't know if edge is where they go at pick 17.
Interesting.
Jimmy, you want to go first, or?
No, go ahead.
Joe, you remember being a local guy, the drugstore listening to Jerry Jones. Jerry was a very good friend of mine. meant a lot to me, did a lot of really nice things for me. And he always told me this: outside a quarterback, we'll see if Brian throws anything at his monitor or nods yes. He said, outside a quarterback, a pass rusher is the most difficult thing to forecast in the transition between college and the pros. And you look at the history of this franchise, they have whiffed, not just recently, but I mean, go back to the beginning. They have not been able to draft pass rushers. There have been a few Carlos Dunlap, fantastic player. Eddie Edwards, probably the best defensive end in the franchise's history. But other than that, they had Mike Reed, who unfortunately for a couple of reasons had to retire early. He was a dominant player. Geno Atkins is a legitimate Hall of Famer. He'll be in Canton one day. But there are so many high round misses. It is Bengals draft kryptonite.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into it in detail with Brian. But, and Brian, I'll go ahead and put it there now. Pick 17, well, I think they're going to be guys there that can help them tremendously. I'm all for trading down because I'm really worried. I'm worried about character issues on a couple of the guys we're going to talk about. I'm worried about size issues on some of the guys we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to, with how Al Golden is retooling the defense. And I really think for them to help Hendrickson and Murphy and maybe Joseph Osai, the best remedy to that is to get some pressure up the middle. The defensive ends in round one this year scare me, the guys that are going to be left at 17. I'm all for trading back. Give some quarterback hungry team the pick at 17, keep Jackson Dart out of Pittsburgh. And pick up another second round, pick up another third rounder, and do that. But I'm not. They have got to address edge with multiple players. I'm just not completely sold. Like I said, it's going to look great initially, but then we got to see what happens. So it's drafting a defensive lineman, a pass rusher in round one has traditionally been Bengals kryptonite.
Yeah, and a couple of names too that I'll throw out there too, that Justin Smith blossomed after he left Cincinnati. David Pollock, just unfortunately a bad break with what happened with him here in Cincinnati. A couple of other names too. And the people I've talked to have said, and Brian might be able to back this up, it's a very deep draft when it comes to a lot of guys who can rush the quarterback. And, I asked him about the two guys out of Ohio State at running back. There's two guys out of Ohio State who could rush the passer who probably aren't going to go in the first and second round, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. So I think there are guys that this team could look at maybe to value. And when it comes to taking a swing, could it be multiple guys that they use at that position this year? And to your point, if you get multiple draft picks, you can take multiple swings on trading down. It's a long shot. The Bengals don't trade down very often. I believe it's been 13 years since they last traded down in the first round in 2012. Is that correct?
Right.
If I'm wrong, I think they had a pre-draft trade down about 7 or 8 years ago. But it's just something they don't do very often. But, if it is a deep draft at that position of guys who can help, but, philosophically, this team has to get better at getting to the quarterback. And Brian makes a good point about this team drafting towards kind of a prototype of size, which is very interesting. And maybe they have to step out of that a little bit. And to your point too, Tom, about character issues, guys have brought up James Pierce. How much does he love football? Mike Green certainly had some red flags of what happened with him. So there's question marks all around at that position. But certainly this team has to have a plan in place because what's the future of Trey Hendrickson after this coming year? We don't know that yet. And if he walks after the 2025 season, holy cow, this team really needs help getting to the quarterback.
Yeah. I just got a text from Mike Brown. He's inviting all four of us to the draft room.
That's it. We're in the war room, baby.
We're in the war room now, so we're good. We'll help him. We'll help him get these picks right. So, Joe, brother, we appreciate you being on. Thanks for staying on a little bit longer with us. This is awesome, man. We appreciate
I enjoyed it, guys. Thanks for having me. And especially for Brian, I'm going to listen back to this podcast and listen more to to what he has to say so I can be more prepared for draft day. I'm curious, Brian, this is the last thing when I ask you, and then I'm going to get the heck out of here. How early do you start the process of getting your draft ready? Because it's about this time of year when I start thinking about it 2 weeks out. I'm sure this is a several-month process for you.
I've already started working on a 2026 board. So
it's unbelievable.
So
it's on his website.
Yeah, we don't have to be the experts, Joe. I don't have to act like I know how to talk. We got Brian here. So
That's right.
But hey, tell the crew, Trisha and Jeremy and everybody else down there, you guys have the best crew in the world, man. Tell them everybody from Bengal Jim and Friends said what's up.
We will. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Joe.
See you, buddy. Joe's the best.
Like that.
Good stuff.
Sorry to do that to you, Brian.
Hey, it's what I'm here for, right?
Well, guys, hey, everybody that's watching right now, man, we've got about over 1,100 viewers right now live. Hey, let's get them out there, man. Let's ask the questions. But this is the 4th year in a row that we've done this pre-draft, and Brian's one of the best. So we're going to really ask some very poignant questions to Brian here. But Tom will let it get kicked off. I'm going to try to keep up with the viewer questions, and we'll get to some of those questions for you too.
We're going to keep rolling with some of what we talked about with Joe, Brian. And first off is the guys that might be there at 17 at that edge position. And then we'll slide inside at who might be there at 17 as a defensive tackle. Who are you feeling about that they're either on the board as strong possibilities for the Bengals, or they're going to be talked about as being a Cincinnati Bengal on the defensive line?
We've already mentioned James Pierce and some question marks about him a little bit. But man, he's so good on tape. The flashes are real hot. We mentioned Mike Green. He's definitely got some off the field red flags. We don't really have to get into, but I don't know if he'll be available at 17 or not. I think he may actually go a little bit earlier, maybe even right ahead, or maybe a couple picks ahead to Atlanta. Michael Williams from Georgia is interesting. He definitely fits that size profile, 6'5", 265, but he tested poorly, I guess you would say. Didn't really put up those numbers that you would like to see, or that you typically see from a Georgia defensive lineman, but he's been rock solid production-wise in college. I think, he would be definitely on the radar.
He's got Carlos Dunlop arms, doesn't he?
Yes.
Really long arms.
Yeah, really long arms. And he mentioned some of a couple of the Ohio State guys. I'll touch on them real quick. I'm not the biggest Jack Sawyer guy. If they hadn't taken an edge by the 3rd round and he was still on the board, I'd think about it then. I'm much higher on JTT there as teammate than I am Sawyer. Like I said, if they're not changing philosophies, you can rule out some other guys that I'm fans of. But I think, like I said, I actually think they're going to pass on edge in the 1st round, because they're going to ride with Miles Murphy. I think it's going to be a sunk cost type of deal, maybe ride or die. That seems to be the way they do things. They are already going to, they're going to play hardball with Trey. New contract or not, he'll be on the field next year. So, but I think edge might not be the first option for them at 17.
If it is not, as we talked about with Joe, on defense, they've got to get more athletic. They've got to get tougher. They've got to learn to tackle better. They've got to learn to cover better, and they've got to learn to blitz better. There's a linebacker from Alabama, Jihad Campbell, who can do all those things. We're switching to a 4-3. Really, right now, Logan Wilson is back as a starter. We've had a free agent pickup. That might be starter 2. First time in his career, he's being really brought in to start somewhere, but he's athletic and good. Do you see him as a possibility at 17? And how's that trick shoulder he's got?
The shoulder is the issue. I mean, he had labrum surgery after the combine. So, but he'll be ready for camp, I believe, is the word I'm getting. but that's always scary, right? And we've had some issues with that in the past with drafting guys, who didn't do full workouts because of injuries and stuff like that. But Campbell's
from Alabama too.
I wasn't going to say that, but
I can. You can't.
But no, with Campbell, he's not just a linebacker. He's not just a run and chase guy, although he can do that. I think he's solid in coverage, but I think some pass rush upside for him is what you're drafting him for. You're basically going to get an extra pass rusher on those pass downs that you wouldn't have, and I think that's where you're making the money with Jihad Campbell from Alabama if you're taking him at 17, if he's available at 17. I'm not 100% certain he is.
If he's there, if he does, and a couple of weeks ago it looked like he would be there at 17. I'm always amazed these guys haven't played a game since January, but how their stock rises and falls. But, if he is there at 17, how dangerous is that blind side of the Bengals defense with he and Hendrickson together blitzing?
It'd be fun stuff. It'd be fun stuff to see, especially, like I said, and we're used to the scheme. We've seen Lou Anarumo's scheme now for years. So we're kind of used to seeing what he deploys. We don't really know what Al Golden's going to deploy, and you can't really go off the Notre Dame tape or nothing like that to even get a feel because it's different games. So the college game and the NFL game is two completely different ways to look at it. So we're all going to learn at the same time what his defense is deployable. But yeah, I think Jihad Campbell would be a good target for them at 17.
Interesting. Well, Brian, I do agree with the defensive end situation. I don't think that's a first round priority for them in their minds. But I'm going to ask you a little bit of a draft question, but also just kind of being a Bengal fan, your thought. Let's talk about that interior part of the offensive line, the guard position specifically, right? So Cordell Volson's the only starter coming back. Kappa's gone. Cody Ford obviously could fill in there if need be. Bengals don't like drafting guards, especially that high. What do you think is going to happen there in that situation? Is there a big tackle that it gives some versatility that it could go guard or tackle that maybe that's something they could draft if somebody falls to them at 17? Kind of talk about the guard position because there's a lot of comments in the chat area obviously about. We always talk about it. Number one priority is protecting Joe. And what do they do in the middle of the offensive line?
There's one guy locally that the Ohio State fans will like that maybe at 17 is Donovan Jackson, who was forced out to the left tackle spot for most of the season when Josh Simmons got hurt, who I also think will be available at 17, and maybe he can play guard. He was the starting left tackle there, but he was a stud until he got hurt, and then Donovan Jackson goes out there and is seamless, right? But moving him as the starter at left guard, I still think they'll end up signing somebody before training camp starts, be it Dalton Risner, Will Hernandez, someone of that to start at right guard. They cannot go into this season with Cordell Volson or Cody Ford as a starting guard. That's just asking for trouble. There's other guys if they do, and for the record, I wanted to double back because I didn't need to answer this question from Tom. Yes, I would love to trade back, 100% move back, get more picks. Because if you move back to somebody who wants one of these falling pass rushers or the quarterback to get ahead of the Steelers, as y'all mentioned there, you go back into that mid-20s range, whatever. Then you bring in a guy, and let's mention scout the player, not the helmet, Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, who I think is going to be a stud on the interior as an offensive lineman. He becomes available. Or maybe Donovan Jackson at a cheaper place, if you will. If they wait to the second or third round, there's guys to have. Jonah Savania from Arizona is a guy I really like on the interior. But Tate Ratledge from Georgia is another guy, second, third round, if that's the target area for the guard. But they've got to come out of this draft with at least a guy they are projecting to start at either left or right guard, and then sign another guy coming into the season.
Gotcha. Tom, go ahead, bud.
With that, we heard Joe talking about his preference for a safety. As of right now, the official stance is that Geno Stone is back. Geno Stone needed a year to get used to his new teammates. He, like the rest of the defense, he did seem to come on in December after Thanksgiving. What is your estimation on the safety spot? And I know, and I'm going to tell everybody this because we got to back in when things were not going well in the fall last year. James, who's not here tonight, gave me a call and said, "Tom, what are you doing?" And I was whatever I was doing. He said, "Man, get on Twitter. What's happened to our guy Deep Fried? He has gone all homer. He's done a mock, and it's nothing but South Carolina guys." And I looked and I said, "Yeah, he really has. You know, he wants his favorite college guys to play for his favorite pro team. You know, that's his prerogative. We'll check it out." Well, now, if I could have that mock and guarantee those were the guys I was going to get, I would take it and run. But tell me about the safety spot.
Nick Emenwari is my number one safety in this class. He's going to end up being a top 7 overall prospect. I think when my board, I'm actually going to work on finalizing my board tonight when I get off the air here. But was the most athletic player in this year's draft class. 43-inch vertical leap, 11'6" broad jump at 225 pounds, 6'3", ran a 4.38 40. I mean, it's just he's such an athletic. I mean, a lot of people like to pigeonhole him as a in the box safety. No, I think he's much more. I think he can range. James. Yeah, Derwin James is the comp that's coming up for a lot for him, and it's a fair comp. I think he could even play sub package linebacker if they needed him to, or just to change things up, throw teams off, go 3, in a 3 safety package, with him, Stone, and Alabama guy, Battle, just being able to just erase the entire middle of the field would be outstanding. I love Nick Emenwari. I think he could be on the board at 17 when they're up there. He won't be when they come back around in the second round, that's for sure. But I would love him, and to a lesser, not even a lesser extent, Malachi Starks isn't going to be much farther behind him on my board. He's just more of a rangy guy. He would definitely replace Geno Stone in that free safety role. He can just cover ground so impressively and make great plays. So I think they're both going in the first round. It's just a matter of to who and when.
You mentioned Starks. What was going on in Athens this year on Pro Day? They had guys not have the best day on their Pro Day on their home turf.
It's hard to say. They haven't had the best off season to begin with. Seems like they're constantly getting a guy arrested for reckless driving or something. So, but no, it's just one of those things, man. One of those years, and where you don't know what's going to happen with these pro days. It's not like some years they used to say the LSU pro day was the 39-yard dash. Used to hear that a lot. So it's it just everybody has a bad day.
Yeah. Hey, so Brian, we know the Bengals are going to draft a cornerback. They love cornerbacks, right? So kind of just what would be a target or two and kind of a reasonable, I don't know if it's maybe a day 2, day 3, but just any targets at cornerback you see the Bengals maybe seriously considering, not first round, but maybe round 2 or 3.
I almost feel like nickel's where they're going to go, right? If they're going to draft a corner, because Mike Hilton, they're going to be replacing him this year, and you may look to replace that. I don't think they target a corner until day 3 unless somebody falls in their lap. And I know a lot of Will Johnson from Michigan chatter at 17, just preparing everybody for that if it happens. But when you get into that day 3 area, you start looking, guys like Robert Longerbeam, Rutgers is a name to keep in mind at that nickel position. Noel Williams from Cal is another. Tommy Hill from Nebraska. Upton Stout, Western Kentucky. Those are guys I like in that 4th, 5th round area that I think when the Bengals will look at corner coming off the board.
Tom?
So slipping back to the offensive side of things, we've talked a little bit about running back. Wide receiver. Do we need to worry about depth at wide receiver? And is that going to come late, or do you see them giving Jermaine one more chance? Because there's a guy, he could be our starting slot receiver and get 800 yards next year from Joe. He could also get cut. They've made it very clear he's done nothing to earn a spot on this team. He could very. Are they going to go drafting another wideout?
With 6 picks, I'm going to say no. If they trade down and get maybe 2 or 3 more picks, then maybe we get a day 3 guy to push Charlie Jones on the roster there. I'll tell you what saved Jermaine Burton, I think, or what's going to give him another lifeline, if you will, is them changing or modifying the kickoff rule again and changing where the touchback comes out from the 30 to 35. That 5-yard difference, I think, is going to keep teams kicking the ball off more. And he had some success, when he was on the field as the kick returner. So I think that might actually help save his roster spot a little bit if we see more teams kicking off, if you will, just because the talent is there. It is. It's just, dude, get your head on straight or it's over. I am intrigued by the fact that Andre Yoshivas has put on about 10 or 15 pounds, they're saying. Him as a big slot, that's intriguing to me.
If they can get him some separation, and, there's another guy that showed so much as a rookie and really was given a shot last year. I mean, had he done everything we thought they could have, maybe T isn't as big a priority this offseason, but it seemed like he had trouble getting some separation in certain games, and there were a couple of clutch drops.
Well, that's why I said a big slot. I'm not expecting him to I'm expecting him to get matched up on, tight on safeties, make those close, those tight window catches, the 50-50 balls, if you will, down the middle. That's why I think, adding the weight, getting more strength will help him out. Or maybe, the 1% chance of Jermaine Burton not being a knucklehead will get him on the field more as that number 3 receiver. But to come back to the question, like I said, unless they acquire 2 to 3 more picks along the way, I don't think wide receivers should be a target unless just something stupid happens with a guy falling in their lap.
Got it. So, Brian, let's do this. You can go up to 3 rounds if you want, but Bengals roster today is the same roster we have Thursday, Friday, Saturday for the draft. Where are the Bengals going? Your pick in round 1. And you can go to round 2 and 3 if you want, but definitely round 1. Take your shot here.
Let's take my shot right here, right now. Pick 17, round 1. The Bengals take defensive tackle from Ole Miss, Walter Nolan. Get that just tremendous pass rush up the middle that they just haven't had in a long time. And get him in there. I think Nolan, he's still just 21 years old. A lot of people giving him flack about changing schools so many times. I don't really think that's that big a deal as far as that goes. But Walter Nolan, I think just the pass rush upside, up the middle, something the Bengals have seen work against them for so long. And that'll help the edge guy. That'll help Myles Murphy. That'll help Trey Hendrickson even more. Not that he really needs it, because the focus is there. The pocket gets pushed to one side or the other. When you have a guy like Nolan in there. Second round, I feel like this is where they will come off the board with a guard, and I'll say Tate Ratledge, the guard from Georgia, immediately comes in as the starting left guard. And 3 weeks after the draft, they signed Will Hernandez as a free agent, and he ends up being the starting right guard. So I'll call that shot too. And third round, this is where they go with the edge. And I will say third round edge, Jordan Birch from Oregon, former 5-star player out of high school, originally signed with South Carolina before taking that sweet NIL money at Oregon. But he is the Bengals' prototypical size guy that they like. He is 6'5", 285 pounds. has had some injury issues, so fits right in with what the Bengals usually draft. And but when he's on the field, he can get after the quarterback. So injuries pushing down into that mid-third round area. So we get Walter Nolan, pass rushing interior defensive tackle, Tate Ratledge, starting left guard, Jordan Birch, rotational pass rusher in the third round.
So Brian, so all three of those guys, are these guys that can show that you're saying Jordan or Birch, maybe a rotational guy, but these are three impact players year one as rookies, you think?
I think so. I think Birch gives you 5 to 6 sacks as a rookie, potentially. Nolan 7 to 8 in the interior, and Ratledge is day one starter at left guard.
Love it. If that happens, brother, we're sending you a case of beer. All right, we'll take care of you. Tom, go ahead. There's just a lot of comments in the room right now, not a lot of specific questions, but yeah, a lot of folks agreeing with that. That would make Houday Nation pretty damn happy if those three things happen, Brian.
Yeah, a lot of beef is what is definitely needed. What is in a draft where we're told after you get to about pick 10 or 12, the difference between pick 12 and pick 60 is not a lot from a talent standpoint. What is for the Bengals the panic scenario at 17 that, I'm sure that, they have their board and they would not like me using the term panic. What is the abort situation at 17 where, hey, you know what? We can get the same guy we're going to draft at 17. We can get that guy at 24. We can get that guy at 26. We can pick up that extra third round, maybe for a desperate team looking to get up and get that quarterback. And we can also screw the Steelers, get a 2-1, maybe even a second round. Are all these names we're talking about, could they vanish right in front of us, which so often happens to us?
It's always possible, but especially in front of you, you have Atlanta, you have Indianapolis, Atlanta, and Arizona. The 3 picks in front of you all can upgrade their defense. And if you're under the guys that you think the Bengals are definitely going to go defense, you could see Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon. You could see Walter Nolan. You could see Jihad Campbell. All those guys could go off the board, click, 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 right in front of you, and then you're left holding the bag. Then that might be the case where that might be the thing that forces them to go to safety or to corner for someone like Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron from Texas. Maybe it forces them to go with one of these tackles that can be a guard type of deals at 17. You're hoping of all hope that both of the quarterbacks not named Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders are on the board at 17, if that's the case, because then, maybe you force the panic trade back, or not a panic trade back, but helps the Bengals be able to trade back, get some extra picks, and then, maybe take someone else.
When I talk about panic scenario, if, as Joe Danneman or Jimmy said, Mike Brown wants you in there. Mike Brown wants you sitting right in between Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor. Pick 17 comes up, and Green and Pierce are both there. All your other guys are gone. Nick's gone. Starks is gone. The other defensive ends are gone for round 1. They're all gone. Campbell is gone. What do you do? If you were an NFL GM, would those guys be on your board, or would you remove them?
I would hope if I was an NFL GM, I'd have much more information at my disposal than what I have other than public knowledge.
They've talked to them multiple times. I mean, both guys have been in Cincinnati.
I would probably take James Pierce over Mike Green just on a pure upside status if I was picking between those two guys. Although I did see Mike Green bulldoze a potential first-round offensive tackle in front of my eyes at the Senior Bowl, and Josh Connerly Jr. from Oregon, just ran right through him, ran over him. Green was so good in those 2 Senior Bowl practices, he left after that. So he shut her down and went to the house. Like I said, but a pure upside, because I don't think he's put it all together yet with James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee.
Interesting. Interesting. Let's get to a viewer question here. Robert is asking about Deion Walker from Kentucky. Any information on him?
He played last year with a broken back or some sort of back issue. If you look at his 2023 tape, especially in the game against, one of the main games I watched of Kentucky that year was against South Carolina, and he was dominant in that game, dominated their offensive line, was in Spencer Rattler's face that entire game. This year, production tanked. We know why now. He didn't have a good week at the Senior Bowl either. We know why now. He tested poorly. I think we know why. Is that going to push him down into round 4? I think it could. He also has a weird size profile. He's built like a nose tackle, but he doesn't play like a nose tackle. So that scares teams a bit into thinking I think he could drop off. If Deion Walker was on the board when the Bengals picked in the 4th round, hell yeah, I'm turning that card in. Man's a menace, when he's healthy. Anything above that, though, I'd be a little worried.
Interesting. So tell us about I don't know, every year we ask you this question. It's like the surprise pick, like somebody on your board right now that is not rated very highly, but you think is going to be a significant player in this league, kind of a surprise pick. If the Bengals pick something mid-late, your kind of surprise pick that could come in and make some noise for us.
Trying to think of a guy who can have an impact for them. I think if for some reason they can't get that pass rushing defense tackle in the 1st round and they come back in the 4th round, draft a guy like Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech, because we know what undersized 3-tech defensive tackles had the Geno Atkins, obviously the unicorn here. But if you're trying to recreate that, you're trying to recreate it with someone like Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech. I think he's available in that 4th round. Maybe even later, Tonka Hemingway, South Carolina, is a guy I absolutely love in the 6th round if he's available. Another undersized guy that just causes havoc, but not the entire game. That's why he's going to be available in the 6th round. He's a rotational guy that you would draft late. Safeties, a guy like Maxon Hook from Toledo, who had a great week at the Senior Bowl. I think we had some Tyson Anderson from Toledo a couple of years ago has had some success. I think 5th, 6th round, he's a guy that can make some plays. There's several offensive linemen, especially on the interior, that I think if they took in the 5th round could help at some point. Maybe not early, but down the road. Clay Webb from Jacksonville State, 5-star player, started at Georgia. Just Google his off-field issues. They're not great. But I think he'll be available on that day 3 area. And running back is, as I mentioned earlier, Ollie Gordon, Damian Martinez, just because I think they're complete opposites of what Chase Brown is. And if I'm drafting a running back on day 3 for the Bengals, he's a guy. They're guys I think, along with Taj Brooks from Texas Tech, bigger running backs that kind of offset what you already have with Chase Brown, because Chase Brown can't be carrying 90% of the snaps again next year. 90% of the carries down the stretch again like he did last year. That can't happen.
Gotcha. Yeah. Tom, go ahead, bud.
Well, Brian, if you could send a message, if you're not going to be in the draft room, if you could send a message under the door, slip a note under the door at Paycor Stadium, what would you remind them of that they seem to forget so often on draft night?
Think outside the box, guys. Trade down. Do pick swaps. If you're trading down or whatever, let's do some pick swaps in the mid rounds. Maybe take that mid 4th round pick and make it a late 3rd, or take that mid 5th round pick, make it a late 4th. Do some stuff like that, guys. Get creative. Do things that you don't normally do, because obviously the same old tactics can only get you so far. And when all else fails, fresh tactics, right? So let's try some new things. Let's not stick to our defensive end, must be 6'5", 275 pounds. Maybe the guy that's 6'2", 240 can get the job done, right? Let's try new things.
Well, Brian, brother, we appreciate you being with us again, man. We're all excited about this time of year, brother. It's Christmas for you, brother. I know. So we're excited about this as Bengal fans, because, like Tom said earlier in the show, I don't know if you were on at that point in time, but this is a very critical offseason.
Very.
This draft is
very
damn important. So
got to nail. You've got to get contributions from 4. If you only make 6 draft picks, you've got to get substantial contributions from 4 of them. Quickly before I go, to my buddy who's not here with us tonight, he's getting at least 2 Syracuse guys drafted this year. At least. Minimum 2.
Any of James Syracuse guys going to the Bengals?
No, because one of them's Kyle McCord, so they're not drafting a quarterback. Now, I don't know. Maybe round 6 Fadil Diggs as an edge rusher, if they haven't taken one yet. I think that's the other guy from Syracuse that gets drafted. Maybe LaQuint Allen, their running back, in the 6th round.
I'm glad you followed up on that. Sorry, Brian. I had it on my list.
I can't leave him hanging like that.
Can you remind everybody about your site, everything you guys will be offering, how to read you and your partners, and also what you'll be doing on draft during the draft on your draft site?
Yeah. So from now until the days leading up to the draft, we'll have mock drafts. Should have another 7-round mock draft dropping on Wednesday. Our partner, my guy Brian Lamb's going to drop that. I just put one out a week ago, last Sunday. You can go check that out. And on the Monday before the draft, I will be releasing my final Bengals 7-round mock draft. Save the best for last. We've done all 32 teams leading up to the draft now, but the Bengals get to go last because I'm the boss, and I get to decide what goes when and where. So the Bengals, the final Bengals mock coming up on a week from tomorrow.
Got it. Brian, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking time with us.
Thank you again.
You're an annual staple on the show, brother. We love having you.
I'll keep coming back as long as you have me, guys.
All right, bro. Thanks again, man. Have a good one.
Good day, Brian.
Good day.
That's what you got to love, man. Somebody who that knowledgeable is also a diehard Bengals fan too.
He gets done with us, and he will be up working on that till about 2-3 o'clock tonight. Tomorrow morning.
I tell you what, his again, we put him on the spot here, right? So Bengals go in Brian's mind, defensive tackle Nolan, and then round 2 they go guard. Was it Ratledge out of Georgia, and then round 3 they go edge, Jordan Burks, edge rusher out of Oregon. So, and he's also talking about them picking up another guard before the season. Anyhow, there's some guys out there that will come in and start for us.
One thing about that, there are, and actually somebody with a bit of NFL knowledge pointed this out to me. Said that everybody's screaming about Brandon Sheriff, who's still out there. Dalton Risner, still out there. Will Hernandez, still out there. All would be great improvements over what we had last year. Great improvements. But there are also 31 other teams that have not signed those guys yet. There might be reasons. One, there's rumors that Brandon Sheriff might be thinking about retiring if he wants to play next year. And if he does want to play, he wants to play on a Super Bowl contender, but he's also probably going to want a lot more money than he's worth. Will Hernandez he got injured, I think, in early October. So he's coming back from knee surgery, and to his credit, instead of I'm doing great, nothing to worry about, sign me, he's pretty much said, everybody needs to wait till I'm well enough to pass a physical, and I'm not there yet. It's supposedly that could come sometime in the month of April, but not before the draft. So I think Brian put it very well. They will pick up another guard. they have to pick up another guard, and they will do so before training camp and maybe even before mini camp.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit. Again, let's talk about two other things here real quick. Let's talk about Jungle Jam for a second. The VIP session is very close to being sold out. Just telling you, grab those VIP tickets. We'll start announcing more names tomorrow for the event. So 3 really big names are going to pop out this week, Monday through Friday. We'll have a big one starting tomorrow. But we've already announced 3 of the Bengals' top 50, 4 of the Bengals' all-time 50 players have committed to come to Jungle Jam. Lamar Parrish coming to town is a really big deal, guys. Lamar doesn't get out much at all, but him coming to Jungle Jam is special.
You know, that might be a warm-up trip for the Ring of Honor ceremony.
That's right. I'm with you on that. So big announcement coming tomorrow on who's going to be coming to Jungle Jam. And we'll do an announcement every day this week, Monday through Friday. The other thing we want to hit on a little bit, again, real quick on Jungle Jam. Again, it's at the levee, Newport on the levee. We're taking the entire levee over. Check our social media platforms. Grab those tickets. The VIP, I think there's under 30-ish, somewhere around there, tickets left for the VIP session. The VIP session gets you into the alumni autograph session as well. And if you didn't want to spend that money on that VIP session, you can just buy a ticket for $25 for the VIP session. We've got a boatload of alumni coming in town. We've announced some guys like Mohamed Sanu. Who else, Tom? I'm blanking on.
Williams wasn't there last year. He's coming this year.
Yeah, Kevin Casefarn is coming in town.
Casefarn. We're getting some of those guys from the Marvin era. And again, I know I've said this before, but the neat thing for some of these guys is this is something, you know, Jimmy and I will jab a little bit out there on, but they remember what it was like here. And even in some of the good years, how they would just get demolished by part of the media in this town.
Yep.
The comments and so forth. And they would leave here or retire or get traded or leave via free agency thinking the city hated them. And when they hear from you guys now as fans or interact with you guys like they put the words out to their teammates, you know, you can't believe it. No. People are smiling and laughing, saying, do you remember when you did this great thing in this great game? Or how well you played this season? And that meant so much. And we've had a couple of big, tough football players kind of well up and get verklempt and almost start crying in front of us because it means so much. So it means a lot to those guys, not just the memories of all those great players, but the bright future that the Bengals have too. And we hope to see everybody there that day. Free to get in, air conditioned, and very, very insanely reasonably priced to get in for the autograph sessions.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll start doing the 2025 season preview program and the Jungle to the Hall program, obviously, where this all started from to begin with. Changing the subject now a little bit. We did post something on social media just a little bit yesterday. And you guys know, Tom and I, we were involved in Issue 1 campaign in the mid-'90s to help build those 2 stadiums, the Reds and Bengals Stadium, and that whole Banks area down there. And I think we've been saying it for a while, Tom, that, you know, there is literally going to be all kinds of, you know, stuff in the politics said, you know, in the media, things said by both sides, the county and the Bengals. But we have some positive news. The Bengals have been talking to the county. They've been talking. They're obviously not completely on the same page, but they're moving in the right direction. These stats that you see on the screen right now are statistics that we actually got that were submitted by Hamilton County to the state of Ohio for the funding. They're trying to get a piece of the funding from the state, which is fair. I think funding should come from the Bengals, Hamilton County, the NFL, and the state. That is only fair, right? Because of what you're seeing on here on the screen. This is actual impact study done by Hamilton County. Their financial impact, the Bengals' financial impact on the region and the state of Ohio annually, $1 billion in economic impact, creating those 7,500 jobs, $650 million in annual earnings in our region. So that's a big deal when the county comes out and provides that type of those type of stats. You know, a deal is going to get done. It's just going to be painful. getting scared and things being said in the media all the time about it. But Tom, things are moving in the right direction, but man, a lot of work to be done.
A lot of work to be done, but the Bengals and the county work together to quickly get that proposal up to Columbus. The Bengals and the county worked together from the initial assessment of what needed to be done at Paycor, $1.25 billion. The Bengals get involved, and suddenly it goes from $1.25 billion to $830 million. So Commissioner Driehaus was, as she put it, cautiously optimistic, but also very upbeat on the signals she's getting from Bengals management and ownership and how desperately and how hard they want to work to stay here and be the Cincinnati Bengals. So I think overall was an optimistic week. There'll be some people we're not going to discuss openly who, for their own selfish reasons, maybe don't want the Bengals here and don't want a deal to happen. Well,
they want that money for themselves, Tom. They want that money for their.
Yeah, well, we'll concentrate on the positive and go there. But there was a positive week. The next thing, though, is the Bengals in the county. Columbus wants to see that signed lease before they can move on. Columbus getting them their portion of the money and figuring out how they're going to do that. But it sounds like it'll be roughly a third. Commissioner Driehaus said a third from the team. The team doesn't seem to be balking about coming up with that kind of private money. A third from the county, which I think now they can very much live with, and a third from the state. So let's get that lease signed, get it up to Columbus so they can figure it out. There's no need for Cleveland to have everything or anything for that matter. But
it doesn't matter how much money they pump into that city up north. It's still not going to be better than Cincinnati, Ohio, brother. So we're all on the same page there. So real quick, next week, guys, obviously we're not going to be on next Sunday night, Easter weekend. And then we will be on Monday night, though. So we're going to have our pre-draft special. We always have annually. I think this is our 5th year in a row having Dave Lapham on at this time, right? Pre-draft, and also Taquito Spikes. So Dave Lapham, Taquito Spikes next week. Monday night will be the show. So pretty excited about having both those guys on. And I tell you, man, it's we got to nail the draft here, Tom. But go ahead and we're already 12 minutes over. Go ahead and close us out, Tom, and I'll kind of close it out on my end.
No, big week. Fantastic guest tonight. And thank you again. I know I bore you guys, but it means a lot. Not just everybody who sticks around and watches us live every week, but when it's 2.5, 3 times as many people have watched us by Wednesday on the replay of the podcast. It means a lot that you would choose to hang out with us and talk football, which is what we like to do and what we do when we're not doing a podcast. So thank you very much. Have a safe, happy Easter and Passover. So we will see you Monday night, a special night, Monday night talking football next week with Dave Lapham and scheduled Taquito Spikes. And can't wait. And I think James will be done putting the sandbags and the flood wall back over in Covington. And we'll probably have him as well.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks everybody for being with us tonight. It's always fun. Can't believe we're getting ready to go into this is kind of the off season. We really don't kick off season 6 until July, I think, Tom. But man, we're coming up on season 6, man. Unbelievable. We've been doing this damn thing that long. So a lot of fun, all because of you guys. Appreciate you being part of it. Don't forget about the Jungle Jam tickets. Keep an eye on our daily post coming up here again Monday through Friday on announcing some players. And happy Easter, everybody. We love you guys, and we'll see you next Monday night. Good day, everybody.